and welcome to episode 171 of The Joy of Coding. My name's Mike Conley. Yeah, gonna be hacking out some Firefox stuff today. We'll see how it goes. Let's get started. No delay. Let's roll in. Hold on a second. Let me switch to my screen. And there's already some Twitch chat. Your change, such and such, broke context menu in my nightly since that pref doesn't exist and was not created automatically. Apparently my change in, oh boy. No, I don't know what bug is being talked about here. Ocris, let me know. Also, the video output on YouTube is again really low. I'm gonna just quickly message the people in who manage that sort of thing at Air Mozilla. Let me just let them know. Hold up. Letting you know that YouTube is again a low number of frames reaching them. Okay, so Ocris is talking about a particular context menu issue in NS context menu, saying that media video controls picture-in-picture enable fails with exception and breaks the context menu. Oh my goodness, I think I understand. For media controls, yeah, I think I get it. So this was originally behind a, I think this has been broken for a couple of days, which is too bad. I can fix that though. Basically, we need to have the default pref set. Let me just make sure that that's actually happening. Oh no, it should be happening. We should be having this pref defaulting to false for our nightly users. Like if I go to about config right now, and I reset this, it should default to false. So Ocris, interestingly, you are not getting this new pref, even though it was disabled. Like it hasn't been created. And I wonder if that's because, like, did you have it at one point set to new, or set to true, or some other value? Interesting. I don't know what to do about that, except maybe that doesn't sound like a picture-in-picture bug. That sounds more like a preference bug. But let me file a new bug for this. Preferences. This is like core preferences. Okay, so user reports a pref, I should just say, be general here, a pref is not, user reports, what should I say here? Sorry, I'm just diving right into filing a bug. Can I test my nightly? Yeah, certainly. I can already tell you right now, my nightly has the pref, it's defaulting to false here. So user reports that a preference, a default preference isn't showing up in their profile. So let's see. Let me refer to this bug. In bug such and such, I removed some if-defs around setting the pref to false by default on nightly in all.js, and then I'll link to the line number. A user has just reported to me over Twitch while I was live hacking. A user on Nightly reported to me that their profile doesn't appear to have the pref available and set to false, and so this point in our context menu code, let me just no. Was it picture enabled in our context menu code? Throws an exception because the pref is for some reason not available. Hey NGN, have you heard of this sort of thing before? What's the best way for this user to move forward? Is there some diagnostic or logging that might help figure out what happened here? Okay, and I'm going to need info. Nicholas Nethercoat, who I believe works on this sort of stuff. Submit. All right. So that's done. Moving right along then. Yeah, welcome to episode 171. If it's not immediately obvious, sometimes things don't go according to plan. I'll get sidetracked. I'll end up filing bugs. Who knows what'll happen? There's no script to this episode, to any of these episodes. In fact, the logo, the slogan, I should say, the tagline for The Joy of Coding is "No plan survives breakfast." Things can go horribly wrong or get off into the weeds, and that's okay. There's no script. I'm just trying to capture software development in the raw, and sometimes software development means listening to users and filing bugs on their behalf. That's just, at least working on Firefox at least. And because this information that Ocris gave me is useful. Who knows how many other people might be experiencing that bug, and there might be a real problem in our preferences infrastructure. So gotten that filed, and hopefully Nicholas Nethercoat will look at that soon. What else do I want to talk about? There's an episode guide. Oh, the agenda. Of course, the agenda. So this thing that we're looking at right now in the video is probably not very useful if you can't click on stuff. So you can actually access this agenda. It's in the, if you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it should be in the handouts. I actually realize now that I forgot to update the handouts. So I'll do that real quick. Hold on. Let me just quickly update the handouts. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description, which should be below the video. Let me just grab the link here, and I'll drop it in both for our Air Mozilla folk and for Twitch folk. Here's the agenda. And then the link to rate the episode is also here. And you can use that afterwards to let me know what you thought of this episode, whether or not it was useful, interesting, or if there's anything I can do to make it better. So I have now updated Air Mozilla, and let me put the link to rating this episode into the Twitch chat. And that is done. Okay, so now that you all have access to the agenda, there is an episode guide. You should check it out. It's up to date, up to episode 170, thanks to Smurf D and his lovely contributions. And if you're interested in submitting your own addenda, notes, corrections, if you want to elaborate on something I've talked about, or maybe, you know, add additional context, you should check out the episode guide and maybe send me pull requests to the repository. I happily merge in pull requests from all over the internet. I'm very, very lenient in what I will accept. So please send me things if you think that the agenda could use, or the episode guide could use some additional information. Let's get started. Okay, well, first of all, I want to make sure that everything's working. I'm not dropping too many frames. YouTube is still experiencing like a pretty bad lag. It's like, it's orange, whatever orange is. Let me just check the messages here on YouTube. It's saying stream health is okay. Video output is low. So that's not great. And the folks in Air Mozilla say they will be checking it out. So who knows? We'll see we'll see what happens in the next couple minutes. Maybe that'll get better. So let me just say thanks to the people managing that. What do I want to do today? Well, originally I was going to work on this bug where, well, first of all, let me give you a quick update on last week's bug. So last week we were working on a bug that made it so that if you were watching a picture-in-picture video, like if we were to go to this site and open a picture-in-picture, I have to enable it, sorry. If you opened up a picture-in-picture video like that, I also realized, having kind of flown through the stream last week, that oftentimes my head was in the way of the picture-in-picture video. So I'm gonna do my best to make sure that I can move this thing so that you can see it. One of the things that we noticed last week was that there was this bug, and actually Big Buck Bunny is maybe a better place to show this, because there are two videos on this page where if you were to open a video in picture-in-picture and on the same page, you would lose the original picture-in-picture video, and that was because of an out-of-order series of events where, you know, we overwrote a variable and things got a little out of joint. So thankfully, that works now, and the fix is in nightly. So we are able now to flip back and forth between the two different picture-in-pictures. Boom. No problem, and they work properly. But what do I want? That's the update for last week. Originally, I was going to work on adding some telemetry probes, and we might still do that. But I want to do something else first, and that's because I've been working on this mystery, this really frustrating mystery for the last couple of weeks. If some of you, maybe some of you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted something this morning that was like, oh, the relief whenever you finally get a break on a bug, or like get a promising lead on a bug that has been mystifying you. And last night or yesterday, I was actually able to get a lead. Okris in the Twitch chat asks, how about multiple picture-in-picture? Out of scope. That is currently out of scope, but who knows? In the future, maybe we'll have multiple picture-in-picture windows. Technically, certainly possible, but at least for the UX spec, it will be a single picture-in-picture window per Firefox process. Okay, so what was the mystery that I was trying to solve? Well, there's this bug that I was working on. This is all for picture-in-picture. It was this site here, drag this one, 153.4389. Let me put that bug in here, actually, so that you can follow along. Whoops, daisy. And I'll link it. And I actually don't think I created a notes for this. Oh, I did, but it's empty. But now I can probably start collecting some notes now that I'm diagnosing a problem, which I'll talk to you about in just a second. But let me just hook up the notes. March 27th, draggable region, notes. All right, so let me briefly discuss what's going on in this bug. So we've got this picture-in-picture window, and one of the effects, one of the things that UX wants is that if you were to hover that window with your mouse, we want controls to appear over top. So like a play and pause control, a close window control, and a close window, and send you back to the tab you came from control. And they only want those to appear on mouse over. And one of the things I discovered a couple of weeks ago was that the mechanism that we use to make it so that the window is draggable when you click on like any part of it that's not a button, the part that makes that work is this underlying machinery that does hit testing on Windows. So let me back up a second here. Every time a click event comes in, we eventually tell the underlying platform to do a hit test to tell us, oh, you know, did we hit something that's like within our window, or is it maybe in the title bar of the window? Maybe it's the anchor in the corner for dragging, like that sort of thing. So we do this hit test, at least on Windows. Maybe, I'm not sure if it works the same way for Linux, the GTK backend or the Cocoa backend for Mac OS, but at least for Windows, we do this hit testing. And whenever we are in a region that we want to be draggable, like for example, this region, the title bar region behind the tab strip, this is a special region. And on Windows, that special region, we the hit test that we return, because we can override, oh man. We can provide a function that helps do the hit testing. And what we say whenever we click on one of these title bar regions or any of the draggable region inside the picture-in-picture window is we return a hit test value of ht caption, which is, if we look at the hit test function here, there is ht caption. It says it's in the title bar. So even if we're not in the title bar on Windows, and I know it's kind of difficult for me to describe because, well, actually what I can do is I can do what I was planning on doing earlier, which is to switch to my Windows box here over remote desktop. So let me re-describe what I'm talking about by going to a page with some video and then opening it in the picture-in-picture window. So notice how I can click and drag this thing no matter where I click. And that's because every time I click on it, some part of Gecko returns a value for this hit testing function on the mouse down and says, oh, you're on the title bar, which is like this part of the browser, like the upper part, this thing up here. And that's what allows us to do things like make the window draggable. One thing I'll also notice that whenever you unfocus the window, it gets really ugly. Like, look at that, we get these. That's a bug right there. I should probably file. Like the window decorations, the window borders get crazy ugly. At any rate, so we make it so that it's draggable, and that's great. So the window can be moved around. But for some reason, for mysterious reasons, a couple weeks ago, I realized that the hover effect, like the hover pseudo selector that we use to know whether or not we're hovering this window, wasn't working unless you were directly hovering the control. And what I really wanted was, you know, anytime you hover any part of this window, the controls should be like available but semi-opaque. That's what the UX spec describes. And then when you hover the control, they become fully opaque. And I wasn't able to get that first effect where anytime I'm over the window, the controls sort of reveal themselves. And the reason for that happens to be because, let me close the picture-in-picture window. It happens to be because of this bug. So let me go back to my Mac OS machine and we'll look at this bug here. So I kind of lay it out here. The draggable region causes us to hit test the picture-in-picture Windows HT caption. My own local testing shows that in that case we end up handling the special message from the Windows event loop sends us this message, WM NC mouse move, where NC stands for non-client. And in Windows speak, non-client means anything that's part of your window that is not actually part of where you would normally be drawing. And when we say HT caption for our hit test result, Windows goes, oh, well, that's the title bar, which is like a non-client area, even though we are technically in a place where we're drawing. So we're kind of mucking about with the Windows, with Windows's conception of what things we are clicking on and how they should behave. But I mean, it's all relatively above board from what I can tell looking at the other programs that do similar things. I was examining the Chromium source code. I was examining a couple of different pieces of software. They all do similar things where you just return HT caption if you are on an area that you want to be able to click and drag. But in those areas, we get these types of mouse move events or messages, and we need to service or we need to sort of redirect these to the normal ones if we want to get the hover effect. So I wrote a patch to do that. And so if, well, let's take a look at the patch here. I wrote a patch so that if we are within a draggable region, so a draggable region is a special region where we have declared we're returning HT caption, but we're in a special region that's not actually the title bar. I was saying, oh, if we're in a draggable region, forward that message to the normal mouse move message. Like, dispatch a mouse move event so that our mouse move handler will receive it normally, and then it will behave as we expect. And that worked. That worked. And so I landed this patch a week or so ago, and I got backed out because of a test failure. I got backed out right here 9 days ago because of test failures. And it was very, very frustrating. And for the past over a week, I've been trying to figure out, why am I failing this test? I couldn't reproduce it locally, and I couldn't really reason about what was going wrong until yesterday, late in the day. I had a minor breakthrough, and that breakthrough was the result of mostly just kind of exploratory logging. Because the only time I can replicate or reproduce the only time I was able to reproduce the test failure was in automation. So I'd add a bunch of logging, and I'd push to automation, and then I'd wait an hour or so, and then I'd check the log to see if there's anything useful, rinse and repeat to try and like look for patterns in behavior, like what happens in the good case and what happens in the bad case, and just kind of follow along until they diverge and try and figure out why that divergence results in a test failure. And I hit a divergence that I think results in the test failure. And what's interesting, or it's interesting to me at least, is that the test that's actually failing is kind of a red herring. Because I believe what's going on is it's the test just before the test that's failing is causing the problem, and it's not cleaning itself up properly. And because it's not cleaning itself up properly, then the next test, when it runs, it actually fails to complete because we're in this special state, and then the test times out, and that causes the failure, but it reports it for the sort of the second test. It's like a scapegoat. It didn't actually do anything wrong. It was planning on doing everything normally. It was the previous test that was screwing us up, and that sent me down like a long, deep rabbit hole trying to figure out why the scapegoat test was causing the failure. I was deep researching parts of it, and only yesterday did it kind of get revealed that, oh, it's the test just before. It's not cleaning itself up. So let's take a look at what that test is doing. And I've already been doing some additional logging today. Okris asks, so the tests are not isolated? No, for the interests of speed, what we do our best to clean out the test state by running tests in an iframe. Like, this is a specific type of test called a Moki test, which tests like web platform features and like the web behavior and how we do things like, I don't know. Basically, it's testing our ability to be a web browser. And doesn't test like the browser UI or anything, but it tests the web content area. And so we run a lot of the tests inside an iframe, and that iframe is hosted inside what's called a test runner. And in between each test, that iframe is blanked out. Something like a sort of a interstitial document is loaded, and then the next test is loaded in that iframe. So we don't shut down the browser and start up again, but we do clear out the iframe, and that adds a little bit of isolation, but not full process isolation. And the problem is that the previous test is putting the entire process in a particular state that is screwing us here. I'm gonna try and explain what I think is going on, but I have to remind you that I don't fully know. I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm hoping that during this episode, in the hour or so that we have remaining, we're gonna be able to explain what's going wrong and what this state is, but I don't actually know yet. But I'm getting closer. And unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit of a frustrating journey because it takes a while to get the information out. So strap in, it's going to be a bit of a slog. I'm going to probably go back and forth between this and another bug just to keep us moving and to not get stuck waiting for a machine to build. That's what I normally do, is I'll work on something else. So let's without further delay, let's take a look at this log, and I can show you where I'm at. Timeout. So this is the timeout, and the timeout's reported for this bug, or this test, I should say, this test running in HTML, and this is the scapegoat. This is the one that I was researching, trying to figure out, well, why could it be timing out? And it's actually the previous test up here, hang on a second, this is where the test times out. Where's the test start? Test bug 1298970. and then we crash the browser because it's timing out. Okay. Okay, so here's where the test starts. And then the previous test, if we go and take a look at where it starts, one of the things it does, well, first of all, here's the test. So let's open that up in a new window, or a new tab rather. One of the things it does is it starts a drag operation in the child process. And it does that by, I'm sorry, no, this is the wrong test. Where is it? This one, it's this test, sorry. This is the one that's just before. This one was the one before that one. It was the penultimate test. This is the one we want. So what this test does is it waits for its iframe to load. Hopefully you can read this. Waits for the iframe to load, and then waits for focus. And then once focus comes in, then it creates another iframe, excuse me, inside of itself. It has a spelling error, I just noticed. And then it loads, inside the iframe document, it puts in this div, and then it gets a reference to that div inside the iframe, and it attaches a shadow node or shadow root onto it. And then it, if you're not sure what I mean by a shadow root, you should check out the shadow DOM stuff for custom elements. It creates an anchor node, and it creates a text node, and then it puts the text inside the anchor, and then it sets this href on the anchor, and then it puts the anchor inside the shadow element. And then what it does is it sets up this trap function. It doesn't actually do anything with it. It makes sure that there's no drag currently underway. It sets up an event listener for beginning a drag operation, and this is the event listener right here. It's defined up here. And then it synthesizes mouse moves. So like it does that, it synthesizes a drag operation by putting the mouse down at these pixel coordinates, and then moving the mouse here and then here while the mouse is still down. And the mouse is down because there's no mouse up in between. So it's like we click and then we move, and that should initiate a drag operation. And so that's what we wait for. We wait for this drag start event to fire, and that should occur synchronously. So we don't have to wait or anything. By the time we dispatch this event here, this mouse move event, we should have gotten a drag start event. So we'll run this function here, and then we'll make sure that it's basically testing a thing, but it doesn't matter what we're testing. It's the drag operation that's interesting. And after the drag the synthesizing of the mouse moves is done, we remove the event listener. We make sure that there is a drag session, that I think we haven't stopped moving the mouse, and we haven't lifted the mouse button. We're still mouse down, so there is a drag session currently underway, and then we manually end the drag session, and then we make sure that there isn't a drag session anymore, and then we finish the test. That's what the test does, and this all runs in the content process. Okay, that's important. Now let's go back to the log. We see that the test starts. There's a bunch of logging in here that I'm not sure is useful, but then here's where we invoke the drag session, and we are doing some things with starting the drag session, and then starting the drag session completes. And then at the end of the test, we say end drag session. That's this part here, where we end the drag session. And I believe this is where we're responding to that here, and the test passes. We've done everything we needed it to do, and then the test finishes. Now what's interesting is just as the next test starts, the parent process says, oh, now I'm going to start a drag session. I've seen some mouse events, and I'm going to start a drag session. And so it starts a drag session, and it doesn't end it. There is nowhere, until we crash, the drag session does not end. And that means that the test is, the gecko thinks that the mouse is down in the parent process and dragging, and it's preventing the test from proceeding. For some reason, that prevents the test from proceeding. I'm not entirely certain why, but that is ultimately the problem. And I don't want to try and delve into why would a drag session prevent a test from proceeding. I'm more, why is the parent process invoking this drag session? Because if we go into the, let's see, so this is a log of us running with the my patch kind of disabled. So this is the good case. And if we go to the test where we care about here, it's this one, and we open up the log and we go there, we'll see that in the child process the drag session is started. We invoke it, and we actually do tell the parent at some point, hey, I think we tell the parent, we might tell the parent, consider starting a drag session, but it doesn't actually happen. If you look in here, the parent never starts a drag session, and that's the difference. So that's the mystery. That's what I'm hoping we can figure out today. Why is the parent starting a drag session? Why isn't the child starting a drag session? Or why is the parent starting a drag session when it shouldn't be with the patch? Because we probably shouldn't be for this test. Because, I mean, clearly, if you take a look at where the mouse events, like the mouse down and the mouse move events occur, they're synthesized based on an offset to a target. So, and the target in this case is the link, which is inside the iframe. So, like, we are definitely synthesizing these mouse moves inside the iframe, inside the content area. So it's not necessary for the parent to think that we've started a drag outside. Like, I can understand why the parent would want to initiate a drag if we are out here and we start dragging like a part of the toolbar, but we're in the content area. And when we're in the content area, the parent doesn't need to know that we're dragging until we drag outside of the window. For example, if we were tearing like an image out or something. So Okris says maybe next test sets mouses up, like maybe make it so that the next test mouse ups the browser or mouses up. Could, but I'd rather. Oh, Smurf D says I should breathe. Am I running out of breath? Am I yelling too much? I'm sorry if I'm yelling. I'm very excited. Let me take a moment. I keep forgetting that I modeled the joy of coding off of the joy of painting. And the joy of painting, starring Bob Ross, if you're not familiar, you should check it out, is probably the most soothing television you can get for free these days off of like Twitch or YouTube. And I highly recommend it. And originally I was hoping to have the joy of coding be such a calm, meditative experience, but Smurfy says, I basically talked without breathing since the start of maybe the episode, so that's about 34 minutes. But all right, let's try and focus in. We've done a lot of talking. Let's focus in. So Okris asked, how come we don't mouse up in the next test? And the reason I don't want to do that is because I've broken some kind of assumption. Like, I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to mouse up in the next test. I shouldn't have to fix the test to address the issue, because it's possible that the issue that I'd be working around in that case, I mean, what we're describing there is a workaround. The workaround might result in an actual usable, perceivable problem. Like, there might actually be an error here. What I'd like to do is maintain the status quo, maintain the original behavior, but just add the special case where if we are in a mouse draggable region, I can get hover events. So we have to figure out why. Why are we getting these? Why do we start this drag session in the parent? And why don't we start the drag session in the good case? So Okris says, but maybe the next test is also broken by fixing this test. That's true, maybe. I doubt it. The next test has nothing to do with mouse or dragging, which should have been like the dead giveaway. That should have been like what, I mean, that's what was frustrating me so much when I started going into this. If you take a look at the test that times out, it never even gets to run, because like we hold while we're waiting for this drag session to end, we hold loading it. I think that's maybe on purpose. Like during an ongoing drag session, I think we like might spin a certain type of event loop that prevents network activity or something. I'm not entirely certain, but this is the test that fails, and all it's doing is making sure that the cancel button, or cancel bubble property on events can be set and is set to false by default. So nothing drag related going on in here. So I feel like if we can figure out what's going on with like why the parent is starting this drag operation, we'll have our solution. Smurfty says, you mean that the remove event listener should be equal to a stop drag? Let's see here. Let me see what you're talking about. Let me go back. The remove event listener should be equivalent to a stop drag. I mean, a stop drag should be fired, I think, if we end the drag session here. I'm not entirely certain how the drag service works under the hood. It's possible that the drag start and drag stop, or is it drag end? I think it's drag end event only fires if a drag session's underway. I don't know if like ending a drag session causes the drag end event to fire. I suspect it actually doesn't. What this does probably is just aborts the drag. It's almost like hitting escape while you're dragging. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but if you like drag a thing and press escape, it's like a drag end event doesn't fire. Even if I was like dragged over something, if I hit escape, I've canceled the drag session by hitting escape. And that's the sort of thing that I think we're doing here. So why in the parent? So how are we going to figure this out? Well, let me get you up to speed with what I've already done this morning. So this morning I added a bunch more logging, and I've got logs for the good case and the bad case. And in the good case, one of the things I noticed is like the child does, we start the drag gesture here and we invoke the drag session. We start the drag session in the child. At some point we do tell the parent to, I think yeah, tab parent received a request. And unfortunately, because of the way multi-processing and writing to standard out works on Windows, the log messages from both processes kind of got garbled together, but I'll translate this. This is a mixture of NSI pres shell allow mouse capture being set to false, and tab parent received request tab parent received request and to invoke drag session. So in both cases, the tab parent receives a request to invoke a drag session. And I want to understand how that thing works. Like, what does that mean whenever the tab parent has been instructed to invoke a drag session? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see stopping the DND. This ends the drag session. I don't think that's happening because I think I'll make sure, but I don't think this part's happening. But let me. Here's what I plan on doing. I plan on following this line of inquiry for a little bit, and I'm going to do it with logging. Now, normally, if this was a Linux machine or a Mac OS machine, what I would do to debug it is I would attach I would SSH into the machine and then use LLDB on Mac OS or GDB on Linux and debug remotely. And you can debug remotely on Windows, but it's a little more cumbersome and it requires you to have Visual Studio, I think, running on 2 machines, and I don't have a second Windows machine with Visual Studio on it. So I'm stuck doing printf debugging, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it is a little slow going. I do kind of wish I had my debugger available here. And you know, I could maybe use the debugger on the machine that it's running on in certain ways, like Actually, maybe that'd be, let's do that. Let's do that. I'm gonna keep that log message there. Let's be in the bad case, and I've made it so that the bad case is easier for me to invoke by, yeah, breaking here. So we're in the bad case. This should cause us to start the drag session in the parent. I'm also going to start up Visual Studio. Whoop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, Hattie's like, good luck, debugging tests with MSVC sucks. Good call. You betcha. It sure does. Okra says, 2 monitors to the rescue? It doesn't, it's less about having multiple monitors and more about having multiple machines where the focus and the execution of one machine isn't influencing the other. So like I want to be able to use the debugger without, you know, having to move the mouse on the machine I'm debugging, because that can alter the state that I'm trying to debug. So yeah, yeah, focus. But maybe, so here's what I'm thinking of doing. I'm thinking of, when I run the test, I'm gonna add a breakpoint. Where am I gonna add a breakpoint? Inside, like, event state manager, there's this thing that I was logging that's like, generate drag gesture? Begin tracking drag gesture. And I think this is where I'm going to start. This is where I'm going to set a breakpoint, and then we'll follow up the stack to see where that came from. Why are we trying to do that? So I'm going to no auto run. So this is going to take a second, but it's going to spawn a Firefox that loads the test but doesn't run it. Okris is suggesting 2 mouses. Yeah, effectively, 2 machines would be great. Would be lovely. That would make things, I think, a lot better. Actually, you know what would be brilliant? RR. If I had RR and time travel debugging for Windows, I know WinDebug can apparently do time travel debugging, but I haven't figured out how to set that up yet. That would really be lovely here, though. Maybe that's what I'll end up doing. For those who are curious, I can show you what I mean. Where is my desktop? WinDebug, time travel debugging. Is available in WinDebug preview. So I don't know if it's actually, and it's like, I'm really bad at WinDebug. I'm better at Visual Studio. Like the key commands for WinDebug are so arcane, but it looks like they've added some like better UI for WinDebug, so maybe it'll be better. I have to get it from the store. Oh, come on. Or newer at here, and then give them feedback. All right. Start debugging. I'd want to attach to a process, and then I can like record it. I might end up doing that. What would be lovely if does it do multi-process? That's one of the problems. It'll only record a single process, I think. WinDebug, replay, multiple process, time travel. All right, well, before we, who knows, we might get there, but let's take a look at where we're at here. We've got our test just kind of sitting here. I'm gonna put the mouse here. That seems to make it easier to trigger the failure. I have to make sure that the mouse isn't moving, but I also want to attach our breakpoint. So Gecko is running in 12640, that's the process ID, so I'm gonna attach to 12640. And then I'm going to attach a breakpoint. And the function is this one. And it has has no idea what I'm talking about, so there's probably a namespace thing here. What namespace am I in? Mozilla. I think I'm in namespace Mozilla. Okay. So nope. Come on, man. Namespace Mozilla. Maybe I look at the header, that'll make it easier. Event state manager H. Namespace Mozilla, namespace DOM. We stay inside namespace Mozilla, and then event state manager should be inside namespace Mozilla. What is going on here? So Mozilla, let's choose a different function instead of, let's choose the constructor. Do you know about that? Nope. Well, we can choose something maybe outside of the event state manager, like, I don't know, the drag service. Maybe that'll be easier. And then if we can work our way up the stack, we can figure out why for some reason it can't find it. So ns drag service.cpp on Windows. The drag service here. We're gonna say break on that. And it's never heard of that either. What the heck? Do I not have symbols or something? Let's pause where it is right now. I'm on the main thread. Okay. Oh! Oh, hold on a second. I'm in a different process. So we have this thing that makes it kind of tricky to, yeah, sorry, the parent's actually running in a different process ID. I'm in 11772. So I'm gonna stop debugging. I'm gonna attach to 11. Sorry, whew, things are much more sane. 11772. That's the Firefox I want. Thought I was taking crazy pills there for a second. I couldn't attach to anything. Okay, so we're attached. I'm gonna set a breakpoint. What was it that I wanted? I wanted event state manager. Tracking drag gesture. Begin tracking drag gesture. Yeah. And I think that is within the Mozilla namespace, so I'll just do that. That. Yay! It knows what I'm talking about. That's important. Okay. Now I will run the test, but I'll try and keep the mouse still. That's really, really important. So I have to like release some cabling here. So run. Oh. Oh. As soon as I mouse down, it starts beginning. So that's probably a bad place to set a breakpoint, actually. I'm going to disable that breakpoint. Instead, begin tracking. I guess anytime we might mouse down. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me continue. Let's run the tests. Let's see what happens if I hit reload. It'll run the tests again, right? Good. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-enable the breakpoint. Not move the mouse. Reload. And we never hit our breakpoint. Very interesting. So maybe that's a bad place to put a. That's not a great place to put a breakpoint. So let's put in the as drag service invoke drag session impl. Yeah, man, remember that from memory. All right, here we go. Okay, woo! So we have our breakpoint here. Let's take a look at the stack. So we are getting this because we are receiving a synthesized mouse move event. We're processing a synthesized mouse move event. Where does that mouse move event come from? Like, presumably, we are getting this mouse move event. Invoke drag session, generate drag gesture. We're starting the drag start there. And it thinks we're mouse moving, and it thinks we have the mouse down still. Okay. Where is this synthesized mouse move coming from? Let's take a look at the log. Calling invoke drag session. Parent and generate drag gesture. We're tracking. Side drag threshold check, dispatching drag start to DOM, calling do default drag start. So yeah, the parent does think we're starting a drag. Because for some reason, these mouse moves are coming in. Probably from my code for some reason, and why? Mouse moves are being dispatched. Open file. Let's go to widget, Windows, NS window. Mouse move. Okay, let's do that, and I'm going to continue. Now, why are we here? User activity. Okay. Trying to go on the internet somehow, and now we're crashing. Okay, so let's stop. What did we learn? These mouse move events are getting dispatched, and I want to know why. Let's go to the definition of this function. Yeah, whoop. If a event message equals e mouse move, dispatching mouse move event. Okay. Let's build that. Okay, while we're waiting for that, let's talk a little bit more about time travel debugging, actually. How do I set it up? Windows 10 after installing the Windows Debug Preview app from the store. Brand new version of WinDebug with more modern visuals, faster Windows, scripting experience, built-in support for an extensible debugger model. So maybe I could start there while I'm waiting for this to build. Store. Candy Crush. Okay, we want, was it WinDebug Preview? Get it. No thanks. Install. No. I don't want to do this. No. Oh, good. I didn't have to do that. A lot of anti-patterns there, Microsoft. Making me think I have to like sign into stuff. Okay, here we go. We have a thing that can do time travel debugging. Very interesting. We might get here. Let's close that. Now what do I want to do again? I want to let's run the test. From the chat, Okra says, I just noticed that setting is under if setting is under if def mod. Oh, okay. So Okris, the one who I originally filed that bug for, has a custom build of Firefox that oh, for some reason it's inside the WebRTC. It's inside the WebRTC block. Picture in picture. So that's the problem. I'm inside the WebRTC block, and this pref should probably be outside of it. So I should pref user. I'm gonna close this bug out as invalid. The user got back to me. Apparently the pref in question is being if-def'd out because they have a custom build of Firefox, and the pref happens to be in the if-def'd out chunk, though unrelated. Okay, so close that out, and then we're gonna file a new bug. Video. We're gonna move picture in picture prefs outside of the Moz WebRTC if-def. The prefs for picture in picture got accidentally bundled into an ifdef for Moz WebRTC, and for users that for builds, so for builds without Moz WebRTC, these prefs aren't set, which causes exceptions to be thrown for things like the context menu. So I'm gonna put that in milestone 3. We can fix that soon-ish, but it's not high priority. Boom. Well, that solves that mystery. At least one mystery solved today. Okay, so here we've got our test having been run. So now I'm going to rerun the test and see what happens whenever I run the test here. Okay. Let's look at what the log said. So we start the test in the parent. I'm calling generate drag gesture a lot for some reason. That's probably not great. I really wish the log wouldn't move, so I'm gonna hold that. Start, drag gesture, and then in the parent, where is the parent receive? So okay, interesting. So it's not because of mouse events being dispatched. Like it's not like it's not because we're dispatching mouse move events. Something else is calling generate drag gesture, and I have a number here, generate drag gesture at 2, which is here. Pointer move. So in a mouse move. So we're seeing a move. For some reason we're seeing a move and we shouldn't be seeing a move. So what's firing this move? That's what I want to know. Let's let this sit here. And let's take a look at some source code. What causes pointer move to fire? Oh. E pointer move. Dispatch pointer from mouse or touch. Could be it. Dispatch pointer from mouse or touch. And then there's some handlers. So let's assume that right now it's dispatch pointer from mouse or touch. Mouse move here. So let's see here. Who calls dispatch pointer from mouse or touch? Let's set a breakpoint there in our test code, or when we're running our test. So yes, we're going to reload that. What was the name of the function? Pointer event handler. Dispatch pointer from mouse or touch. And are we inside a namespace? Probably. Inside Mozilla. Yeah, we're inside the Mozilla namespace. Okay. So let us attach to what's the parent process? Oh, you know what? It's going to be listed with the title. This one. And then we're going to disable those, and we're going to add Mozilla pointer event handler. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Now let's rerun the test. Aha, already got one. What's the stack? Processing an APZ event, dispatch event, handle event. So some kind of, in here, an NS window on Windows, when a window is raised or lowered and so we sent the activate. Switch keyboard. And then we dispatch input event, the event. So we create a mouse activate event. And then, hang on a second. How do we go from a mouse activate event here? Dispatch input event. We duplicate the event. Dispatch the event. What is the event? It's a little widget event. Name. Activate. It's still activate. Handle event. Handle event. Event handler handle event. Handle event using coordinates. And then we call preceding pointer event. Dispatch pointer. So it might actually be a mouse move event. This is actually what I want to do is I want to set a breakpoint here, because I think what we got was a mouse activate. So I'm going to disable that breakpoint. Okay, so let's run the test again. Whoop. Didn't hit it. I hit it if I enter the window. But what this tells me is that this is not the place where we set pointer move inside this function here. I dispatch pointer for mouse. So maybe it's a different place. Let's go back to the source code. E pointer move. See pointer move, pointer message. So that's what we did before. Oh, here's another one. Mouse up. On mouse up. So let's take a look at that. Mouse up and mouse down. Oh, okay. So let's do that. Let's look at those two as well. Mouse up and mouse down. So we're going to continue. Rerun. No dice. And notice, like, here's another thing I've noticed is that the X, it's in this stuck state where it won't load something next because I think it still thinks I'm in the middle of a drag. And then if I mouse over, any of the window, then I get the event, and then it frees up. So this is not the place where that pointer event is firing. The thing that's causing us to generate drag gesture. So let's go back further. So it's not there. I wonder if it's aliased to something. Pointer move, pointer move. Well, so it said generate drag gesture at 2. So let me just double check my, let's do a sanity check here. 2, we're inside a handler for e pointer move. So let's set our breakpoint here and then inspect the message. Maybe it'll give us some clues. Generate drag gesture. Now, interestingly, it's generating a drag gesture even though I haven't moused down, which I don't think is supposed to happen. Pre-handle event. Is it because it thinks that I still have the mouse down? If in touch drag. I need to see the line number because it's off by 634. But it's actually here, right? Generate drag gesture, right? So M in touch drag is false. So, okay. Handle event. Let's take a look at the event. That's what I wanted to do. It's a widget pointer event. Pointer move. Wonder where it came from. It's cancelable. Where did it come from? We're handling an event from here, from dispatching an event. We get that event that we're dispatching is this thing called event. And that's our mouse move. And where did event come from? It's coming in from widget input event. Coming from here. Aha, dispatching mouse events. Get a mouse event from WM mouse move. And that comes from process internal. At this point when I call this, was I in a draggable area? True. So what I'm doing for some reason is I am dispatching a mouse move event here. Dispatching a mouse move event here. what's the definition of dispatch mouse move again? Button. Whoop. Oopsie daisy. For some reason, I am saying mouse move, dpm, lparam, and then the third argument is false, which is a context menu, and then I'm saying that I'm also holding down the left button. Why would I do that? When you mouse move, why would I do this? There is a point inside dispatch mouse move where if it's like, oh, if the event's mouse move and the move hasn't, it's not a change from last time, then bail out. Mouse move was in. Setting last mouse move event. I need to see the logs again. Hold on. Let us continue. Let us disable our breakpoints and continue. So at 1905.14 is whenever I last printed some stuff. 1905.14, and that will help me find where I started to do new things. 1905.14, and then 1921.60. 1905.14, 1921.60. Okay. Now 1905.14 is when I started to, I reloaded. And then for some reason I called generate drag gesture 2 for reasons that I still don't understand. And then the test starts here. Generate the drag gesture 2. Invokes the drag session. And then the parent. Generate the drag gesture. We're dragging drag gesture. Entering outside drag threshold check. Dispatching drag start to DOM. Calling to I still understand why. Oh, why we do it in the parent? I thought we were getting somewhere, but is it related to the fact that I'm seeing this so much, that we generate the drag gesture so much at 2? In the bad case, or in the good case rather, do I see that as much? Yeah, I see it as much. In the child, at least. And the parent, I'm also seeing it here, but not in the. I see it in the parent, but not, and also in the child. But I only see it in the child here. Is that true? That the parent never shows generate drag gesture 2 in the good case? Let's find out. So I'll enter the good case by flip-flopping some bits here. By letting that pass through. Okay, so let's build that. So the question I want to answer is, I should have written a bunch of this stuff down. In the good case, do we see, what's the string? This one. In the log. So instead, I'll make that a question. Answer. Ooh. On line 5415. Right. Generate the drag gesture. And if that's true, then what does that mean? How does this time travel debugging stuff work? Home. You can attach. Scripting. How do I attach? Oh, attach to process here. Maybe I could do that next. Gesture too. So one thing I could do is, I guess I could maybe try and do time travel debugging from that. Well, let's see if let's see if the hypothesis is correct, that in the good case we don't see generate drag gesture at 2. Let's take a look. So we see it in the child process, certainly. We do see it a little bit in the parent process. Up here. Parents call. And mouse leave. Then we mouse leave. Because the mouse is left, maybe that's why we... Let's run it again, but this time let's put the mouse cursor in the middle of the screen. So what's interesting is if the mouse cursor is in the middle of the screen, we get the same problem. No, look at the the stop button. As soon as I move my mouse, I release. So maybe all my patch has done, maybe Ocris is right. Maybe it's the test that's broken. Because the test, okay, here's my thinking. In the good case, this test appears to be broken if the mouse is over any part of the window. My patch made it so that we consider the, and see if I'm over the window right now, and then I have to move the mouse to release it. Right. So if I'm up here and I run the test, I'll bet you because I'm considered not in the window, the test will run and pass. Right. But as soon as I'm in here, the test won't run. Oh, it will. But it still has that problem. It's got that X up there. And then I can release that issue. If I run it again. And then it gets stuck. Maybe I do have to mouse up in that test. All right, well, I'm gonna end the episode there at a cliffhanger. I'm pretty sure that we're centering in on something where, here, let me write this down so we can all share in the glory. In the good case, do we see? Yes, but it's less frequent and only shows up if the mouse is over the, quote, client area. So, hypothesis. This test was always broken if the mouse was over any part of the window that we considered was over any part of the window that causes us to fire mouse move events. Up until now, the mouse draggable regions were not those things. I believe our test harness build infrastructure defaults to putting the mouse in the top left corner before running the test, and I suspect that because we now have the mouse in an area where we fire mouse move events, we hit the problem. So the real issue here is that the test is sensitive to the mouse being over the client area and will not run or allow the next test to run. And we just made the client area larger. That's my hypothesis. All right. So hopefully by the time we talk next, I'll have some updates and we'll we'll know what's going on here. Maybe I'll have even landed a fix. If you're curious, you want to watch in real time, you can follow the bug. It's bug 1534389. The link is in the agenda. Hopefully I'll have a patch up there to or a comment updating what's going on once I have this sort of sorted out and I have a patch. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 171 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. Let me know what you thought. Please, if you go into the agenda, there is a link to rate the episode. Give me your thoughts. What'd you think? Also, please like and subscribe or hit the bell or do whatever it is that you crazy YouTubers and Twitch people do. I'm not that hip, so I don't know what those things are, but whatever they are, go ahead and do them and tell your friends and family and your dog too. Okay, so on that note, thanks again for watching. Take care. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. See ya.